Next up, we have another interesting topic, which is not commonly discussed. We're talking about non-compete agreements. Now, to give a brief description, a non-compete agreement is a clause in a contract specifying that an employee must not join a competitor for a certain period after they finish that contract. Many firms do include these clauses, sometimes as standard inclusions across all of their employment contracts, but there's actually little case law to ensure enforcement across their terms. More common is that the clause acts as an effective deterrent in its own right, making employees think twice or three times or more before jumping on board with a company rival. Some jurisdictions, most recently Ontario in Canada, have taken a step to ban non-compete clauses from all employment contracts, saying that they take away from the individual agency of workers to choose where and how and who they exchange their labour with. Now, Mayank, what are the risks that HR and employers face if former staff are able to freely join their competitors as soon as they've signed off from their first job?
Certainly, I think when you look at it from the employer's point of view, when you say, okay, what's important for me in my business? What is it that sets me apart from my competitors? What gives me the edge? And a lot of it is around certainly the IP that you have, the technology, but equally it's also the relationships you have with your clients, right? The connections that you have with your trading partners, and all that is part and parcel of what makes you different and what gives you the edge. And if there is certainly there is a danger of some of that eroding through employees who leave you and also take away some of that advantage, then I think employers have a legitimate claim and a legitimate interest to protect.
Mayank, is this just a question of balance, weighing up the rights of both employers and their staff and finding a reasonable compromise?
Yes, it should be about that, but it should also be about the communications with your employees, so that they understand the rationale. And as far as possible, you would you would want um, this not to be the subject of a legal challenge, because this is something that certainly I think then it's not a question of who wins, but then certainly there is the cost involved and the time involved in mounting that challenge and defending that challenge. So I think by and large, my advice would be to ensure that you consult your legal experts. You provide employees with the rationale as much as you can possibly convince them of the reasonableness of the clauses, and where there are uh, areas that you can be flexible, where employees come to you to kind of say that yes, they have an opportunity, but it is not exactly a competitor, but neither, they're not sure whether, they can or cannot, or they infringe on those clauses, then that flexibility is important. Uh, Having that ability to talk things through, I think that's important. So that would be what I would advise.
Today, firms are facing a skills gap and the ongoing war for talent. Do you think these sorts of clauses can even further deteriorate the current situation?
I hope not. I think it's like all trade restraint clauses like these. They introduce a rigidity in the market, and rigidity means certainly, I think, particularly in a tight labor market that we find ourselves in, you don't want that rigidity in place. It drives distortions. It distorts market forces, and certainly that's not good news for companies as well as for workers. So you don't want this to be something that predominates the markets and the market movements. So I would say yes, there is a danger, but let's see how we can try not to create too much of an issue here, both employees and employers then have a responsibility to kind of provide that middle ground. So what is that middle ground? Can we kind of agree, bring in some mediation if necessary? I think that's something that more and more companies are looking at, mediation or as opposed to a legal recourse.